Thanks for the introduction. I'm filling in for Alex, who is the technical person. Yeah, please bear with me. We have been doing a forest fire model for the government of the Royal Bhutan Kingdom, and we have been working with them for a couple of years now. So before we have been doing some work around flood, rockfall, and debris flow and landslide. And this year we got funding from the World Bank through the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center to do a wildfire model or forest fire model for the whole country. So to give you a bit of a background and context of the project, Bhutan has in their constitution to have at least 60% of forest. And at the moment they have 69% of forest coverage, and 26% is considered as a national park, so it's protected area. So for them, it's really important to keep this percentage, possibly to increase it, not decrease it. And one of the issues that they have, and this is not really something that we think about when we think about the Himalayas, is forest fire, especially in the central belt of the country. So they have like a lot of pine trees, which is very inflammable, and they have a lot of issues in responding to fire, so they need actually better mitigations process to decrease the risk. So the project, as I said, is funded by the World Bank and administrated by the Asian Disaster Preparedness Centers through a program called Innovations for Climate Resilience in South Asia. And we have been working in partnership with the Department of Local Governance and Disaster Management and Department of Forest and Park Services. So the objective of the project is to enhance resilience and promote cutting-edge technology, so to give them the tool for increase their resilience, provide tailored recommendations, and empower local capacities. So this tool actually, which is developed for them, for Bhutan, we are doing some capacity building to transfer ownership of the model. So it's fall into three sustainable development goals: the industry, innovations, and infrastructures, sustainable cities and communities, and climate actions. So the way that we approach Earth observations and AI, so AI is such a buzzword, so what we use actually is deep learning to recognize patterns on satellite imageries. So typically vegetation will be the one that we are the most advanced. We do also with buildings, but we can actually assess very rapidly climate risk, but also monitor vegetations at large scales and with precision. So we work in different type of resolutions, can be 50 centimeters for very localized area to 10 meters for typically for Bhutan, where we work at a scale of the country. And we also work with geospatial analysis to get analytics from it. So the wildfire severity model is not a spread model. It's what we look at is what are the pre-existing conditions for fire to be the most severe. So and with this analysis, we can actually map very rapidly those pre-existing conditions, and typically vegetation is one of the most pre-existing conditions. But there is not only vegetations, there is the topography. So we insert the slope, and we look at the vegetation. It can be with the AI model that we developed. We look at what are the type of vegetations broadly, so high, low, medium vegetations, the density, and the distance to buildings. And we integrate climate data, so we went back 20 years back climate data, and we incorporated building to look at the exposure. So how it looks like is the imagery. So this is Sentinel imagery for the whole country, cloud-free, that we get a mosaic from it, and we applied and we look at the topography. So it looks a bit funny. So this is not actually the typical DVM that you will see, because we use dissections. So we put different waves of the role of the topography into fire severity, depending actually if a flat area, for example, is at the lower end of a slope or is at the top end. Because for a fire, if it's a flat area at the top end, the fire is going to have time to heat up the slope and your severity is going to be more severe. So for each slope, we apply this rule. And we look at the vegetation, so high, low, grass vegetations. We put a weight on each of them, and after we incorporated the climate. So climate is very important because when we did the first draft of the fire model, what we realized is actually the severity was actually everywhere in Bhutan, but because we assume at the beginning, like, well, if it's dry up, the severity is going to be actually very severe everywhere, even actually in rainforest. But actually all the south is so wet, so this is really rainforest. And so we started actually to incorporate climate data to have more a nuanced way to differentiate actually where you have really dry vegetations in the middle belt and this humid vegetation in the lower belt. So we incorporated 20 years data, but it means as well that we can incorporate projection as well. So we haven't in this model, but this is something that we can incorporate as well. And after we add the building, so we use different open source data for the buildings. So OpenStreetMap, we use planetary computer as well. So we try to get the best coverage of building. And after we got our wildfire severity, so where are, if a fire starts, where is going to be the most severe? So it's really for long-term preparedness. So actually we assume that if we reduce actually those pre-existing conditions, we can, if we mitigate them, we can actually lower this severity. So spread models are very good for operations, and so where you get actually fire behavior. But for this kind of approach, is very good for prioritizations of mitigations. And after we calculate the exposure of each building, so we look at within 100 meters around each building, what is the exposure to the fire severity of this building. So after we can extract all sorts of analytics. So for this we looked at the number of buildings in local governments, after we went per district, and after we went to the higher district as well, called Giborg. And with that, we do some capacity building. So we did 3 training course. During the course of the project. So we did 1 training course about the use of Earth observations and AI, and we did some training course around like how to run the model. So we transfer now the model to them, and they can run them themselves. So they don't need us. We are here actually for support, but they can actually have the capability now to run themselves. So we train government agencies to run it, and also university and NGOs. So we have 2 NGOs who has access to it. And we delivered 1 software and 6 knowledge projects, which is one of the requirements of the World Bank, that we have actually to do some knowledge projects for the stakeholders, and we engage with more than 30 stakeholders, and to co-design the tool, but also to make sure actually we are all all on the same page and incorporating what they need to do. And after this model is going into the decision maker system that they have. So what we really wanted with this project is not actually one-off and project. It was the sustainability of the project and having this scalability. So when we did the first project in South Bhutan with the rockfall, debris flow, landslide, and flood, we had actually limitation in giving them the tools to run them themselves. So we wanted really to have something like, and it was also not large scale enough. That was really localized area. We were looking at only 400 square kilometers, while actually here we can cover the whole country. So that's actually the scalability at the long term was really something important for us to do. And what we wanted to give them is the tools to make mitigation strategies. Because as I said, they have really limitations in terms of having resources. So just like in Thimphu area, which is the capital city, they have one fire truck. And the terrain is not even actually adapted for a fire truck. So, and they don't have like, Australia has beautiful helicopters that they can actually deploy very quickly. They don't have this kind of resources. So they have to do land management for other mitigations, because that's the only thing that they can do. And making sure actually they develop in area which are safe, which actually they don't have mapping for that. So, so that was really like giving them actually those tools for decision making and mitigation strategies, because we know that increasing the resources to respond is going to be very difficult. And we wanted to give a tool as well for resource allocation, so prioritizations, and where they're going to put the money and how they're going to put the money, and building protections. They have very strict architecture codes, so they have actually to build always the same way. So they have really little room for new codes. So we try actually to, again, it's all through land management that they can do something. So we try to give actually this overview, and that's also a way to with the maps they can actually go to do some community engagement, because community are not really aware and what they can do and what is actually the threat of wildfire, because this is actually not something happening which has been happening for a long time like we have in Australia. It's not part of the culture. So this is something that they can use actually to do much more awareness, and people can start to talk together. They can talk and actually make people do something about it, and assessing exposure and risk across at scales. So I can show you actually what it looks like on the web page. So this is the portal which is going to be launched this afternoon. So you have first view of it. So so this is a wildfire severity model that we have across the whole country. So the one who lives in the Greater Hobart, maybe you have been aware of the one we did for the Greater Hobart. So this is a bit similar of it, but for the whole country this time. It's just not only 2,000 square kilometers. This is the whole country, which is actually smaller than Tasmania. And if we go to Thimphu, which is the capital, after we try to. It's taking a while to load. So they can, if you zoom in after you can have information about the exposure of each buildings. And one thing as well, which is really important for Bhutan, is monasteries. And monasteries are always built on very steep slope. And the only person who are actually responding to those fire around monasteries are the monks. So they don't really have resources. So we have been actually engaging with them to understand a bit better what they have been doing. We look at fire scar around their monasteries, and they start to actually build fire hydrants, but they have actually they are the first responder in those areas, and it's not like monasteries you can rebuild. There is a huge cultural significance to it. So we have been talking with them as well to understand what are the capabilities and how it would look like if they knew better about the fire exposure as well. So that's about it. I think I'm still in time. And yeah, there is time for questions.
Were there any questions for Roxane on this work?
Thank you for that. Could you go into a bit more detail about how you use different vegetation types with your determinations? So does it lead to establishment of like a rate of spread for that location or a head fire intensity, those sorts of things?
It's not a fire spread. So when we did actually a literature review, and we look at what are all the pre-existing conditions for fire to be the most severe. There is a few criteria, but the most important criteria is not really the exact type of vegetation, but there is actually this broad type of vegetation, high, low, medium vegetation, so grass, shrub, and trees. And we look at there is the climate and the topography. That's actually, and the weather. So we didn't incorporate the weather. So that's actually the main parameters actually for fire to be the most intense. So we are not looking actually at doing a fire spread, and there is always this fine line between, okay, what do you incorporate to be the most scalable as much as possible, what kind of information actually it's enough to make your decisions, or what is actually the really refined scale that you have. So here we really look at broader. We don't look actually at putting actually what kind of pine trees there is, instead of cheap tree or blue pine tree. We are staying quite broad. We tried to incorporate data, but it was really old, and they didn't have much information of, it's like, broadleaf tree or pine tree, and even actually the boundaries were not good enough. So the thing is, with the deep learning model, we can really looking at, we mix with different indices, we can really look at actually these broad categorizations, which is enough with the for that. And the way we compare actually is when we run a fire severity model just before fire and wildfire, and we use the burn index during a fire. What we can see is actually our model predict very well where it's the most severe. So we don't need to go too much into details, because we don't aim to do a fire behavior model. After, when you want to do some spread, yes, of course, you need much more information, but we can incorporate actually in any type of information, but at this scale, it won't change much.
Thank you.
Were there any further questions for Roxane? You may have covered this briefly, but I just wanted to ask a little bit more about. This is an Esri web map that you're using to display the data. Could you just elaborate a little bit more about the display and how it's set
That's
up?
just like an interface. So we just use, because we are Esri partner, so we just use this interface for, and it's publicly available. So it's just the interface that we use. All behind, actually, we all run our models on Python. Don't ask me exactly which again, and but it's just the interface that we are using, as we could have used Carto, or we could have used actually any different one.
Okay, everyone give thanks to Roxane.